one of those people that sits on our trade team and is perhaps one of the most active and thoughtful members is a young woman from South Dakota. And Congresswoman Kristi has just returned from a trip that she took representing the United States Congress, and I would defer to the woman now for her discussion on not only TPP, Japan, but also agriculture and the things which she represents so well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for yielding, and I want to thank you for the honor of being a part of this group that today that is talking about TPP and the importance of trade in the region. I did have the chance to get back this morning from a week-long trip in Asia discussing trade and the importance of the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, and the European Union trade negotiations, and the ways that we can expand trade that would benefit our economy. The first step to seeing these benefits is in these agreements is renewing Trade Promotion Authority. And then we set our goals and our priorities in these agreements. This was a big topic of conversation throughout the week as we met with leaders from Japan, including Prime Minister Abe, and South Korea, and then also with the leaders in China and the People's Congress. Time and time again, America has reaped the benefits of completed trade agreements in our country. For me, the profound impacts that we've seen in agriculture are particularly interesting. We've seen an 18% increase in ag exports since we signed the agreement with Panama. There's been a 68% increase in agriculture exports to Colombia since passing trade agreements with those countries. We have also generated new business in other sectors of the economy like manufacturing and the service industry. We've created jobs here at home while benefiting those people across our country and economies abroad and built relationships with them that we certainly reap the benefits for when it comes to foreign policy and security issues as well. In my home state of South Dakota, we've seen export support and create jobs and higher wages for our economy, including our state's #1 industry, agriculture. Currently, South Dakota agriculture exports total more than $3 billion annually, and they support over 20,000 jobs on and off the farm. It's estimated that more than 1 in 5 jobs in South Dakota depend on international trade, and those plants that do export goods pay higher wages, they hire more people, and they do it a lot faster than those who don't. Soybeans, corn, wheat, feed grains, and livestock grown in South Dakota are already shipped to countries around the world, and we can increase that by growing our access to markets through free trade agreements. As we're working towards Trade Promotion Authority and negotiating the trade agreements, I think the enormous benefits that it could have for our country, especially as our economy struggles to recover, increasing exports and trade and markets across the Asia-Pacific and Europe is essential. Japan is one of those countries that's included in the Trans-Pacific Partnership talks and is already one of the largest purchasers of U.S. corn and soybeans. With a good TPP agreement, we could see an increase in grain and livestock exports to Japan and the entire region. That would spark economic activity throughout our country as well. Of course, we need to ensure that we get it done right. And I've asked for assurances from our U.S. Trade Representative that we won't close the TPP negotiations with Japan unless they agree to eliminate trade barriers to agriculture. I appreciate that the Bipartisan Congressional Trade Priorities Act outlines trade negotiation objectives. It includes prioritizing agriculture. We need to ensure that food safety and animal and plant health measures or restrictions are justified based on sound science. Ultimately, we need to ensure that we have an agreement that is fair to our agriculture producers. Now, when I had the opportunity to travel to Asia last week and discuss some of the ways that our country and Japan and China and others in the region could mutually benefit from trade agreements, I made it very clear how important the ag industry is in finalizing any final trade deal, and some of my concerns that we already had with existing barriers. But we're making progress, and we need to give those who are some of the agreements in the region the tools that they need to get this job done. This is one of the main topics I heard from leaders involved in these discussions. It's something these leaders see as key to coming to an agreement on these free trade agreements, and it's key to agreeing on how a final deal will impact the agriculture sector. You know, I think a lot of folks don't realize that Japan has the #3 economy in the world, behind the United States and China. If we can finalize an agreement with them, it will set the table for TPP and also for the region on how our discussions go forward with China as well. It'll open up new opportunities in China, where 1.3 billion people call home. There is no way that China can continue to feed its own people and will rely on outside sources for their proteins, for their grains, to make sure their people are well fed into the future. In fact, some of the discussions that I had with businesses and government officials was the difference between USDA beef and United States beef and South Dakota beef than what they're currently enjoying today. As incomes have risen in China and people are making more money, they have a desire for more proteins in their diet. Today, their main source of that protein is from Australian beef, but yet every day they ask, when can we get USDA beef? That's what these agreements would bring. Not only open markets for us and increase our exports, but bring the Chinese people the kind of goods, food, and services that they want to enjoy as well. 50% of the people in this world live in that region. It's a market that we can't ignore and that we need to prioritize into the future. We need to take this first step so that we can continue reaping the benefits of trade in South Dakota, in the United States, and across the world. It's imperative for job growth here at home and for prosperity for all of the countries involved. Historically, when you've looked at free trade agreements with other countries, the prosperity of all the countries involved have risen as agreements have come forward and been done and completed. I believe that as we focus on this issue, as we approve TPP, as we negotiate agreements that work for all of our countries involved, and we finalize with TPA authority, we will certainly get an agreement that is good for all of our countries and beneficial to create jobs here in the United States. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this discussion tonight, and with that I will yield back.
I appreciate very much not only you taking time, Congresswoman Noem, to be here to speak with us, but in particular the references that you make to your home state, a state which you represent so proudly, in which you not only carry the flag of South Dakota with you, but really on behalf of all Americans that live not just in rural areas, but who every single day get up and go to work to make this country stronger, to take our products and services and goods overseas to make sure that the agricultural products are clean and the very best products available. And I think one of the most interesting things that you said was really the point which we do understand, and that is the world thirsts for American-made products. The world understands firsthand how important your industry, your agricultural industry is in South Dakota and throughout the Midwest. The very best of not only beef, I did include Texas in there, I hope,
yes,
but the very best of agricultural products that go around the world, and then as you travel to see people thirst for those products.
You know, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd just like to expand on that a little bit, because a lot of our discussions that we had with the Prime Minister of Japan and also with the leadership in China was the fact that not only as we negotiate these trade agreements and our economies are linked in creating jobs and prosperity for both of us, but then it helps our foreign policy as well. We recognize how much we need our allies in the region to come alongside us, and that we recognize it sets the table for agreements that we have with China, keeping peace throughout a region that right now the United States is very focused on, where we have had to be a leader of strength in order to keep peace and keep presence, and by having trade and interactions with their leadership and their people dependent upon us for their food and their protein sources, it certainly is going to be beneficial for us today, tomorrow, and long into the future if we can continue to do that and to make these trade agreements finalized.